In this video I'll be showing you how to crochet a sphere using Amigurumi techniques. Hi, I'm Rebecca, and the sphere is probably the most basic shape for any animal or object. So you start by increasing each round by 6 if you're using double crochet, then you work a number of rounds without any shaping, and then you decrease the last few rounds. So the sphere is used for all the shapes. So the head is obviously a ball, the body is a ball that's just got a longer straight section, so it makes about an oval shape, and same with the legs. The legs start in the middle and you increase it in the same way, and the ears are the same, they're just a squash ball. So once you've got the hang of making a sphere, you can make just about any shape you like. So we start with the magic circle as usual, and we're doing 6 double crochets into that magic circle. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Most amigurumi is done in double crochet. If you're American, you call it single crochet, the smallest stitch that we generally do. So you pull the magic circle tight to make a loop. That's the end of round 1. You've got 6 stitches. So in the second round, we're going to be doing 2 double crochets into each of the 6 stitches. So you're going to have a total of 12 by the end. So the idea is that you increase each round by 6 stitches. So it's an approximation of a sphere. You can get more technical and do the exact stitches, but for simplification it's just easiest to do an increase of 6 stitches each round. So the first round, that means you're doing 2 stitches into each stitch, because you started with 6 stitches and you need to add 6, so that's obviously double. And once you get the hang of how the numbers work, you can see how the shapes can be made with any combination of stitches. So if we're doing this sphere, we start with 6 stitches. Second round you've got 12 stitches. I'm just double checking the stitch count, and then in the third round what I'm going to do is just put a little marker in to mark the start of each round, because that helps a lot with counting of the stitches. You only have to count back to the marker. So I'll move that up every round. So third round, you want to increase 6 stitches again. So that means that you're going to be increasing every other stitch. So I started with 1 double crochet, and then I did 2 double crochet in the next stitch. So you keep that pattern going all the way around. 1 double crochet and then an increase double crochet, so 2 double crochets in the second stitch. So 1, 2, 1, 2 is the pattern going around, and you repeat that 6 times. So you're going to have increased from 12 to 18 stitches, increase of 6. So the end of round 3 you'll have 18 stitches. So just coming up here to the end of the third round. So if you want to, at any point you can pause the video to catch up. So there I've come around the finish of the third round. So I'll move my marker up 1 round just to keep my place. And the next round, again, I want to increase 6 stitches. So in this round I'm going to be 2 single stitches and then 1 with 2 in it. So the pattern is 1, 1, 2. So I'm increasing every third stitch in this round. One thing you'll notice as you're making up the sphere is that if you do the increases in this pattern, you'll find that the increase stitch lines up with the increase stitch in the row round below, and that will give you a slight hexagon shape because the increase stitches are all lined up. If you don't want that shape and you want a smoother round shape, just move the increase stitch around by 1. So when you start the round, just add an extra single stitch and then do the 2 stitches increase stitch not aligned with the one below. So it depends what you want. In small shapes it's not noticeable, but if you have a larger shape, the lining up of the increases will become quite noticeable. So it depends if you want that look or not. So here I am coming up to the end of this round where I increased in the pattern 1, 1, 2. So each round I'm increasing 6 stitches, and I'm just putting those increased stitches evenly around the circle. So I'm up to 24 stitches now in the round, and in this ball I'm just going to be making it 30 stitches around in total for the ball. So you can make a sphere or a ball any size you like. All you do is keep increasing in this same pattern. Okay, starting the round again, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one into that same stitch. So I'm doing 3, singles and 1 double. So here again, 3 singles, and 1 double, 2 stitches. So I keep doing that all the way around, and I'll have a total of 30 stitches in this round. So this is the 5th round. So as I said, it doesn't matter what size ball you do, you just need to make sure you know how many rounds you've gone out. So in this case I've gone out 5 rounds, so I'm going to be doing a straight section of 5 rounds. So if I want to make a ball 36, I'll go out 6 rounds and then do a straight section of 6. So that's the round I've just done, and 5 more. So it's the same irrespective of what size sphere you make. And of course a lot of amigurumi shapes are not actual spheres, but they're still based on this same technique. So that's my round, coming up with a round of 30. Again, the pattern is you're doing 3 single stitches and then 2 stitches increased. So you're putting 5 stitches into every 4. So that's the end of that round. Just checking the stitch count, still 30. Don't stress too much if you miss one. You can probably just either forget about that or increase it in the next round. It's not going to matter too much. So you're probably the only one that's ever going to know that you've missed one. Okay, so now I'm going to work the straight section. I'll move my marker up. When you get more experience, you don't need to move the mark every round, but as a beginner it's probably a good idea to do that. I tend to leave it down the bottom and then just do it by eye, which is why I keep forgetting to move it up, but I think as a beginner it's probably worth moving it up every round. So I'm going to be doing a total of 5 straight rounds. So that's the round 5 that I did, and then round 6, 7, 8 and 9 will all be the same. So I'm going to jump forward in a minute, and I'm coming up to the very end of that round 9. So you might have to hit pause if you haven't, if you want to keep track or keep up, because I just removed a big chunk of the video to save you watching me do the same thing over and over. So I've done 5 rounds of double crochet of 30 stitches in total. So that's that first round that I did that included the increased stitches and 4 more. So that's got me to the end of the straight section. So once again, if I do 5 rounds of increase, then I do a total of 5 rounds of straight. That includes the final round of increase. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going up there, and then including that round, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of straight. So now what I want to do is decrease to match the increase. And I'm just showing here on a slightly bigger ball where I've done 6 rounds, getting to 36. I then done 6, including that round, last round, of straight. So then to decrease, again I want to decrease 6 stitches in every round. So if I've got 30 stitches, I need to do 1 decrease every 5 stitches. So I'm going to do 3 normal stitches, double crochet or single crochet if you're American, 3 of those, and then I'm going to do 2 stitches together. So I'm going to do what's called an invisible decrease. So I do this by putting my hook through the front loop only of the next 2 stitches. So I end up with 2 loops on my hook that look a bit similar to a conventional V, but they are actually the front loops of the next 2 stitches. And that gives us what we call an invisible decrease, and it's the best decrease to use when you're doing amigurumi work because it's the least obvious or the least bulky. So once again I'm doing 3 individual stitches. Now I'm doing 2 stitches together by putting it into the front loop only of the next 2 stitches. With amigurumi work, you can do it in any size at all, any size hook and yarn, but generally you need quite a tight, your work needs to be quite tight, so choose a smaller hook than what you would use if you were wanting something with more drape, because you don't want holes in your work. So it's sometimes a bit tricky to get the hook through the front loop only. It needs a bit of wiggling, but you do need to have that work quite tight. So that's 3 singles. Now I'm going to do the front loop only of the next 2 stitches, which gives me my 2 stitches together, invisible decrease. So I keep doing that round for the rest of the row. So I'm going to have 6 of those. So if I'm decreasing 6 stitches, I'll do 6 times 3 individual double crochets plus 1 2 stitch together. There's 3 more singles, and 1 2 stitches together. There are 2 types of decrease stitch. This is the one that's most commonly used, and I'll show you the other one, which you need just in one of the final rounds. So it's good to know how to do both types of decrease. This one's called invisible decrease. So in this next round I need to get from 24 stitches to 18 stitches. So I need to decrease by another 6 stitches, but I'm going to be over 4 stitches. I need to decrease by 1. So I'm going to be doing 2 double crochets and then 2 together. Sorry, I've wandered off the screen a bit there. So that means that 6 times I'm going to be decreasing by 1, so I need to do two individual double crochets and then 2 together. And again, if you want the decreases to line up, you'll get that slight hexagon shape as you decrease. If you don't want that and you want it to look smoother or rounder, then add in an extra double crochet before you start the decrease and don't line them up to the one below. So as long as you spread the 6 decreases out around the row, it doesn't really matter where the decreases are. You just need to make sure they're spread out. So an extra stitch here or there is not going to make any difference. So you keep going around in this pattern, 2 individual double crochets and then 2 together. This is the 2 together, and again it's this invisible decrease where you just pick up the front loops only and then work as normal. So at the end of this round I will have decreased 6 stitches, so I'll have gone from 24 to 18 stitches. So sometimes it's a little bit tricky getting it into the front loop only because you're working quite tight. So it's a good idea just to count your stitches at the end of every round to make sure you've got the right number. I should have 18 stitches there. You can see the shape starting to take shape. And so in this round I need to get from 18 stitches to 12 stitches. I'm decreasing 6 again. So I need to do 1 individual double crochet and then 2 together 6 times. So you can see that the 2 stitches together just brings the next 2 stitches together as one. So that's an individual and now it's 2 together. So you just work those 2 front loops just like you would a conventional stitch if you've just gone in. Once you've got the front loops onto your hook, it looks just like a normal stitch, and you carry on with the double crochet as normal. That's 2 together. A single one and 2 together. A single one and 2 together. So you can see it's starting to look a little bit like a ball or a sphere. So before the hole gets too small, you really want to stuff it. So it's up to you. You can use any stuffer you like. I'm just putting the tail in there to help with the stuffing. There's no need to pull it off. Make sure you pulled it tight before you do that. And then you can stuff it with anything. I tend to use scraps of wool, either the tails or if I've any felted wool that's left over, or I save all the tails that I cut off. You'll be amazed at how much it all adds up. So, or you can just get that polyfill stuff that you get in polyester cushions, or you can buy it. So it doesn't really matter how full. This is just bits of wool that I had. I like to, if I'm making wool items, I like to stuff them with wool, but it really doesn't matter. So yeah, as I say, you can stuff them as firm or as loose as you like, because you've used quite a small hook for the size of the wool. It should keep its shape anyway. So you're not relying on the stuffing itself to keep its shape. The stitches will be fairly rigid and kind of hold their shape anyway. So now we're on a round of 12 stitches. We need to decrease by 6 again to get to 6 stitches. And in this round I'm going to teach you a different way to decrease, because if you use the invisible decrease in this round, it can make a few patches in the a few holes, or it's not as dense. So in these decreases, you put the hook into the first stitch and then you put it into the second stitch and yarn around and pull it all through all 3. It gives you a more dense stitch. So yarn into the hook into the stitch as normal and then into the second. So you got through 3 loops on your hook and then you pull it through all through 3. So into the first stitch, yarn around, into the second stitch, yarn around, and then yarn around and pull it through all 3. So you end up with a stitch that's a little bit more obvious, but it's also a little bit bulkier because it's got that extra yarn around. So it just fills, I find that I use this on this last round because it fills any slight holes that might be caused if you try and do 2 stitches together in the invisible decrease way. So this way you can do your 6 stitches, because you need to get from 12 to 6, decreasing by 6, using, I think it's just a conventional decrease stitch. So at the end you'll end up with 6 stitches. So it starts to get a bit small to actually crochet. So what I tend to do at this point is cut the yarn, pull it through, and then I just use a needle to sew up those the tops of those six stitches. So I'll tend to weave across the stitches directly opposite each other. So it's up to you. You can loop the wool through each stitch and then pull it tight. It really doesn't matter. In most cases, this end is hidden. You end up with like this part being the, for example, if you're doing a head, you'd use the bottom here to sew onto the body, so it's not as obvious. It doesn't need to be as neat as the other end. So I tend to just go opposites, so I'll just sew across the opposite stitch. And you're just about done. I just want to show you the difference in the invisible decrease and the not invisible decrease, conventional decrease. And the other thing that you can choose to do is whether or not you want the kind of hexagon shaped look with the increases and decreases aligned, or if you just move where the increased stitch is around in each round every time, they won't line up and you won't get that hexagon shape. So that's really a technique up to you. Well, on this ball I think I did a bit of both, so it's a little bit more random. So the last thing you have to do is just finish it off by doing a loop and then just pulling it through to hide the end. I just pull it tight, and then when I cut it, it bounces back and hides in the ball. And that's it, you're done. You've done the basic amigurumi shape of a sphere. Well done.